So I mean, first of all, that's the opportunity for small companies, in that large companies have gone all in on their big thing, and they're too busy running the big thing that they're missing the small piece, right? So I think that's the opportunity for all the companies that we're working with that are sort of coming into a new category where the big players haven't gotten there yet, because the big players are busy, and they're busy running their 80%, right? And so they haven't had the time to focus on the remaining stuff. But I think obviously it comes down to resourcing, and I think the one, like, if you're looking at, again, at sort of tech parallel, I think Revolut is a really interesting example where they've been able to sort of within the Revolut ecosystem sort of create these mini startups that are launching new products.
I don't know much about Revolut. So for context, I know it's a bank.
It's a bank.
What do they go back a couple of steps, or what do they do differently? And then in these little mini sort of startups that are blossoming within the ecosystem.
So I think what they're able to do is essentially, I think it's probably a slightly less relevant sort of parallel, but I think what they've been able to do, like Revolut is a bank. They've been able to ship and sort of build a bank with a very broad set of functionality. They started with consumer, sending sort of money internationally, and now they got a full business bank. They've been expanding really quickly. Now, why it matters for us, I think, is sort of two things. One is they've been really good at isolating focus, and essentially instead of having you run both the podcast as well as in parallel try to run the event and then 3 other things, you get diluted focus and you might drop the first thing. They've been able to leverage their resources to essentially scale you and invest a new person or new people to run the next thing. So that's one thing, obviously distributing your focus by adding more resource.
Yeah.
But I think the other cool thing that I think we're seeing brands that are succeeding, what they're doing really well is also align like the investments that they're making into they align the investments that they're making with the expected time of return on that investment. This is a bit of a sort of theoretical thing, but we got lots of companies that we're working with that are struggling to think through, when do I raise more capital from angels? When do I use, debt capital to fund certain parts of my business? And I think there's this interesting frame of mind that I think maybe one can have with sort of prioritization in general, which is, I need to find resources and invest resources that align with how quickly I'm going to get a return. And so for many of the brands that we're working with, they might have sort of an up and running business that's humming nicely, and they're using sort of debt funding to fund their day-to-day operations. But then they have this new shiny opportunity out to the right where they want to sort of launch in the US, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to sort of find new resources to launch into Walmart, and it's a huge opportunity. It's going to cost us lots of money. You got this sort of 80-20 prioritization thing challenge. How do I balance, running my core business here in the UK while trying to figure that thing out? And what we're sort of discussing with some of them when it comes to cash flow management is how do you make sure that you're taking sort of cash and investing the type of cash and resources you have and aligning the timeline of that cash with the expected return. So concretely, when you're running your business day to day, you fund that with something that's sort of relatively short term and align it to what your business needs short term today to just keep running your business. And then when it comes to US expansion, you're going to need more patient capital and resources. You're going to need equity investments from angels that are going to say, okay, cool, we're going to need $5 million to launch our brand into the US.
Yeah.
And it's going to take us probably 3 years before we can even see some of that return, because there's going to be a long trough of investment. And you need that then patience from those funders to understand and align with you on that plan. And I think it sort of, there's this parallel on how you balance both sort of where you spend your resource, but also what you expect in terms of payoff across different initiatives.
And also what I love about that is the timing.
Exactly.
The time of the payoff.
Exactly.
Because it's like, for example, again, and asking this selfishly because I think it will help others as well. But it's like this house of creativity thing, right? It's like we've just started that, right? And I literally had a call with James, the guy I'm setting it up with today. So yeah, we've got someone. We've basically got our first client done. We want to get it set up. But like right now, from a revenue perspective, that's kind of small comparatively to say keeping the main thing.
Yes.
But it's like, oh, hang on, I've been doing the podcast for 5 years now. Of course, that's going to be bigger.
Thanks.
Well, actually, that. Once if you can actually productize that, so it's like you know what that is. Obviously, it's case by case per client, but there's actually some sort of systemization there, and actually you could probably rinse and repeat that. You could maybe bring someone in who's really good and actually scale that, so it's kind of nothing's passive.
Right.
But I think the point I suppose we're both digging into is there's priorities. There's also having the sort of prudence and gumption to be able to look into the future and be like, this may be small now, but it could be big later.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Interesting.
And I think one way of enabling yourself to do that, right, to invest into the new thing, is to put a structure that's repeatable on your long-term thing that's already working.
Yes.
So that's one thing that many of the brands that we're working with, they realize that, okay, cool, if I'm using Mimo to fund my regular working capital, just to fund my regular business, it's going to mean that I'm having 2, 3, 4, 5x more in the bank every month. Some of that money I'm going to take, and instead of sort of just holding that in working capital and inventory, I'm going to take some of that money to invest into a new country expansion or a new product or whatever it might be. And so I think it's sort of being smart about then setting yourself up on the thing that works. How do you set that up to pull as little resources from you as possible, both obviously financial but also time, such that you can allocate that to something else? And I think that's one thing that we're trying to educate or sort of talk to founders about. And hey, don't use your dearly beloved equity where you've sort of sold big chunks of your company. Don't use that to have products sitting in inventory, because products sitting in inventory you're going to get paid 2 months from now. So use something shorter term than your equity, and then take the equity and do something more exciting, something that has a bigger upside up potential.
Espressos is sponsored by supply chain software gurus Unleashed. It talks to your e-com and accounting software. It's helped islands cut admin time in half, get granular clarity on your margins, know where your stock is, don't miss availability. Brands like Candy Kittens, Tiny Rebel, and Trip all use Unleashed, and so should you.